Hi, welcome to our home bar and welcome to our YouTube channel, Wise Whiskey. I'm Tony, and today we're doing a blind tasting. For those of you who've never done a blind tasting before, my wife and daughter have picked out 4 whiskeys. I have no idea which. I've got over 100 and somewhere like around 110 bottles at this point, and they randomly picked 4 of them. I have no idea if they chose a theme. I have no idea what 4 whiskeys are in front of me. If you've never done blind tasting before, it can be really, really fun. It can also be very, very humbling. It typically surprises you, but it's a great way to see where you're at with tasting, see what you understand about whiskey, and to get rid of bias. Tullamore Dew, a bottom shelf Irish whiskey. I always liked Tullamore Dew, but I considered it equivalent to like Paddy's and Jameson, similar bottles. And we had it in multiple blinds, and it blew me away. It is absolutely a step above those other bottles once you taste it without expectation or bias. So, and there are other whiskeys that I really drink a lot of now and really enjoy that I hadn't tried a lot or hadn't gone back to since I originally opened the bottle. And particularly with Irish and Scotch whiskey, those whiskeys can open up and taste much different weeks or months later after you first open them. So it's a great way to kind of get out your preconceived notions and also to just have fun and see what happens. So I will probably end up looking like an idiot today. That is the expectation. I'm not surprised at all if that's what happens. I'm going to guess what style these are, maybe guess an age range or alcohol level. If I get real crazy, I may try to say I think I know what whiskey it is. But like I said, would not be surprised if I am absolutely wrong. Now, I have not had anything to drink today, so I am going to take a small sip of Buffalo Trace bourbon just because it's 90 proof, it's easy drinking, it's on the road, just so that I can get a sip of something on my palate and get a little used to the alcohol. Not going to give tasting notes or anything like that. I'm literally just trying to acclimate to the alcohol. Also, I've got my palate cleanser here. I've got another video going to be coming out, Whiskey Tasting 101, where we'll talk way more about the tasting process. But this is Guinness NA. In my first video, if you watched it, I used a regular Guinness. We got playoff football to watch today. I'm hoping to maybe make a couple videos today. So quite a bit of imbibing still to come if I had to guess. So stepped it down to the NA today. But it's nitrogen, so it has a little bit of carbonation to help scrub your palate clean, but it's not overly bubbly. The flavor profiles in here really don't overlap with whiskey for the most part. So it's a great way to kind of cleanse your palate in between. So now that I've had a little bit of whiskey and a little bit of booze in my palate, I'm going to cleanse. We will dive into the tasting. So whenever we do a blind, first thing we're going to look at is color. You can see that these first 2, or at least I can see, much darker than the second 2. So right off the bat, I would guess that these are either going to be older whiskeys or these are going to have more barrel influence. So right away, I would think these might be bourbons and these might be Scotch. It could be that one of these is a sherried Scotch and that's why it's got a darker flavor to it or darker color to it, I mean. But you want to use clues like that just to see what's going on. But the biggest one's going to be the nose. So I'm going to go take a quick sniff of each. That definitely smells like Scotch or international whiskey to me. That a little less so, but I would say probably in the same ballpark. So now we'll go back to each one. The good news is I didn't smell any heavy peat on any of these. So heavily peated whiskeys are always tricky in a blind because they can kind of overwhelm your palate and it can make the other whiskeys a little trickier. Okay, so there's a note in here that I sometimes have a hard time explaining. It's kind of like fresh fruit skin, but it also kind of reminds me of Southern Comfort. It's just like it's hard to explain. Slightly citrusy, slightly burny. I don't have a better word than burny for that. It's a nose I tend to get not on rye and bourbons. I tend to get it in international whiskeys and scotches. Definitely like fruity, but fruit skin, like the skin of a nectarine or a peach. Having drank that though, a little bit of brown sugar and vanilla. I would say on the palate that it's so hard to blind taste things. If that is a Scotch or an international, I'm going to say that it's probably bourbon barrel forward, like a Highland Scotch, something like that. Not a lot of sherry influence, definitely not peated. Not a lot of coastal or marine notes like you'll get in some. It's got a little warmth to it, a little bit of a Kentucky hug. It's making me think probably more like bourbon or rye. It's interesting because, yeah, there's a little bit of barrel in there now too. I'm thinking that's a bourbon. It's got some heat, but it also comes across as soft. So I'm wondering if that might be wheated. Not overly oaky. Not a ton going on. But there's just some lingering burn there, like some rye spice or some proof. It's interesting. We're going to try number 2. Definitely a little bit more kind of orange going on with this, like a little bit of citrus note. Some vanilla sweetness there. Maybe some spice. Yeah, I definitely like some spice. Now that kind of hit your palate right up front with a little bit of sweet oak. And then it kind of just goes away. I don't know that there's a ton going on there. I've found that when I do these blinds the first time through, I can kind of be all over the place. Typically when I go back through a second time and I'll change up the order, that's when I tend to find a little more from everything. But so far, if I had to guess, I'd say bourbon and bourbon. The first one could be a Burr Rye. I think it's probably got a little more proof to it and a little bit more age. But man, I'm not confident about that. Okay, this third one has to be Scotch or international. Yeah, I mean, just that kind of malty, musty note from Scotch. Definitely on the sweet end. It's floral. It's a little richer and softer. Some vanilla, some honey, a little bit of fruit. Really nice. My favorite pour so far. Definitely got a little more. You can see the legs on here, the thickness compared to the first two. Just a softer, more delicate whiskey overall. A little bit more going on. Drinks like it's very low proof. Very approachable. I would say I think that's a single malt, just from that musty note that's in there. Okay, number 4. A little more subdued than the third, but similar on the maltiness. Some lighter, more delicate notes. Now that honestly does not have a lot going on with it, but it is nice. It's very soft, kind of luscious. Luscious, ugh, that's a pretentious word. It's silky. It's just really smooth. And I know that a lot of people look at smooth as a word you're not supposed to say with whiskey, but I think that's ridiculous. Again, I would say this is a single malt, possibly a blended whiskey, but it definitely, I'd say lower proof and less aged than the third one. If I had to guess, that's a either an Irish or a Highland. I'd say that's probably a Highland single malt. Maybe like a Glenfiddich 12. Something that's not overly... Yeah, I'd say, so if you look at my whiskey shelf, in this general area, I've got Glenfiddich 12, a Knock 12. I don't think Glencadam and Arrington have a little more going on than that. The Deanston Virgin Oak starts to get more barrel note and stuff than that, and a little fudgier. So is a Spice Tree. If I had to make a guess on that one, I would say that I think number 4 is probably like Glenfiddich 12. It's got that clean, easy drinking that a Highland Scotch typically has. Not a ton of complexity to it, kind of entry level. Doesn't seem to have much proof. Has a nice mouthfeel to it. 12-year-old Scotch would definitely do that. That's my first guess going through. So what I'm going to do now is kind of mix it up. I'm going to go back to number 3 and then number 1, then 2 and 4. And that way I can get a second one. Then I'll kind of make my guess and we'll see how absolutely wrong I was. So back to number 3. Fruity, floral, light, bright. It's definitely not a whiskey that hits you over the head, but it is nice and soft and sweet. Really, really enjoyable sip. I don't get a ton of sherry notes in that, and it's a lighter color. I think that that's probably a Scotch. If I had to make a guess, or an international, if I had to make a guess on this, I think that's possibly the Hibiki Harmony. Or if I had to make another guess, probably in that similar kind of, maybe a Spice Tree or a Knock 12, or even the Glencadam 10. Glencadam can be sweet. It's sending me Highland vibes. I'm not getting a lot of sherry. I'm not getting peat or coastal. It's sweet, it's fruity. So I'm definitely getting that Hibiki Harmony or a Highland single malt. That's where number 3 is taking me currently. You know, if I'm off on that by a little bit, I wouldn't be shocked, but I don't think that that's going to be like way out of category. So far, that's the one I feel most confident about, which means I'm probably the most wrong about it because that's how these usually work. But my brain's telling me floral and sweet, not overly oaky, not overly sherried, definitely not peated or coastal. So I'm going to say Hibiki Harmony or Glencadam 10. It's been quite some time since I had the Glencadam, and I don't recall if it's actually that sweet. But that's my guess for that one. So now I'm going to go back to number 1. The first one you taste is always the trickiest for me, at least. So I'm going to spend a little more time with this one. Now see, this is very fruity. This doesn't smell like bourbon to me on the nose. I could see this being sherried Scotch on the nose. It just has... It's got just enough oak and brown sugar sweetness to make me think that's an American whiskey. The oak is definitely coming through on the palate. It's very sweet and in a more brash way than Scotch is. Scotch tends to be softer and more nuanced than American whiskey. I don't have a better way of explaining it than that, but once you've tried them for a few times, Scotch is typically rounder. There's more depth. There's just a little bit more going on, a little bit more nuance and sophistication typically. This is a very sweet whiskey. I don't think this is a rye. Yeah. I think number 1 is probably a bourbon that's at least 6 years old and over 100 proof. Man, with that sweet fruit note, but also that bit of oak, I have a really hard time pinpointing that. I don't have a good guess for what that is. If it turned out being a really sweet rye or burr rye, I don't know that it would blow my mind. I'm pretty confident that it's over 100 proof and it has some age to it. In fact, I'm going to say 8 years and over 100 proof. I know that's really generic, but honestly, that's all I got for you. These blind tastings are really difficult, man. Yeah, I think that's about as good as I can give you on that right now. I'm going to go back to number 4. Yeah, number 4, I still think probably Scotch. I do think probably a entry-level Scotch, like a Glenfiddich 12, maybe the Glenmorangie Triple Cask Reserve that we have here. Although I don't, well, Glenmorangie typically has kind of an orange note to it, and there is a little bit of sweet fruit. If that is the Glenmorangie Triple Cask Reserve, it's better than I remember tasting it when I've tried it before. But I think we're talking probably entry-level blended Scotch or single malt. Again, relatively Highland style. Not a lot of sherry, not a lot going on there. So that leaves number 2. Yeah, I mean, you're getting that brown sugar, vanilla. There's still some fruitiness in this too. They're all a little fruity today. Not a lot of proof on that. Not a ton of oak. It is sweet. I'm going to guess this is also a bourbon. I'm going to guess this is 4 to 6 years old and under 100 proof. I'm not getting any defining characteristics that would really make me comfortable with a great guess on that. Just because they tried to throw some curveballs at me, probably, knowing the devious women in my life. I'm going to say this is like the JT Mellick. You know, it's a rice whiskey, very similar to bourbon, but it is a little different. We'll give that a shot and see. Again, not confident at all with that, but I am relatively confident under 100 proof, under 6 years. God only knows. So, again, just to reiterate, I'm guessing 6 years or older, over 100 proof, under 6 years, under 100 proof, but both bourbons. I think this is a Highland Scotch or international whiskey that's, I think Glencadam 10 or Hibiki Harmony. And I'm thinking this is Glenmorangie Triple Cask or Glenfiddich 12 year. So now that we've done that, one of my wife or daughter is going to read me these bottles and let me know what we had. So what did we have with number 1?
Number 1 was Still Austin Cask
Strength. Okay. So Still Austin Cask Strength. So this is a Texas bourbon. It does not have, it just says at least 2 years, but Texas whiskey ages faster. And we're going to do a video in the future on barrel aging so we can get more into that. But I don't feel terrible about that. I said we were over 100 proof. This is 118 proof. And even though this bottle is probably 2 to 4 years old, Texas whiskey ages faster and you do get more barrel character. So getting that little bit of extra oak in there is very common with Texas whiskey. That's something that I didn't think Texas, so I didn't think maybe it's more oak forward because of that. I thought more general terms of age, but honestly, that tracks. I'm not embarrassed at all with that first result. I've certainly done worse. I will also tell you that ever since we bought this bottle, you can tell it's still really full. My wife and I have tasted this bottle multiple times, little taste, and it tastes completely different every single time. It is a chameleon of a whiskey, and this is probably the most enjoyable it's ever been. So like I said before, where we do these blinds and I end up finding whiskeys that maybe I need to go back to and I really enjoy, I think this is probably a whiskey I need to go back to and spend some time with, because I would have probably told you less positive things about this whiskey before this tasting. So yeah, Still Austin Cask Strength. Okay, so what do we have for number 2?
Shut up.
Oh, Olaf.
Number 2 is Elijah Craig 18.
Okay, so Elijah Craig 18 year. So I thought this was a young whiskey, which is insane because this is the oldest bottle of whiskey I literally own. Elijah Craig 18 year single barrel. This was a very wonderful wedding gift from my cousin Robert, his wife Sam. Thank you, Rob and Sam. This bottle was bottled in 21. Now, the thing about Elijah Craig 18 year that's really interesting, well, two things. It's a single barrel, so it varies widely, but also it's only 90 proof. And I did say this was a low proof bourbon. And typically with age, yes, you get tannin and oak, but typically older bourbons, particularly something like 18 year, they're going to be bottled at cask strength. So you start to really, I still associate age with proof quite often. And the low proof, I think, is what threw me off. And I really just didn't get a ton of oak on this one. Yeah, I mean, even now, I mean, that's not an oak bomb. That does not come across as 18 years old. I will tell you that I've tasted Elijah Craig 18 and talked to other people who've had it. And because it is a single barrel and varies, you can get very oaky pours of that. And with the low proof, the oak can just be overpowering. But we did get a really nice bottle of the Elijah Craig 18. This is a great single barrel. So, well, I was right on proof and I was right on bourbon, but horribly, horribly wrong with the age on that one. So I'll take that lump. So what do we have for number 3?
Tyrconnell single malt.
Tyrconnell single malt. Okay. Okay. So Irish single malt, the Tyrconnell. This is a, I believe, a non-age stated single malt, 43%. So yeah, this is a great bottle. Again, I said, you know, I thought it was Scotch or International, that it wasn't overly high proof, that I thought it, you know, Irish, this is not a sherry finish. So, you know, I wasn't completely on the mark, and frankly, this tasted a little better than I remember Tyrconnell tasting. I don't remember it being quite that floral. And it's so funny once you know what you're tasting, because now this does taste just a little mustier and maltier and a little less light and floral, but I had it in my head that it was light and floral in a Highland. So I wasn't horribly off with this one, but, you know, definitely didn't think I was in Ireland with it. Pretty eye-opening. Once again, a bottle that I probably need to go spend a little more time with now, or mix into some more of these blinds and see how it does, because that tasted a little better and did better. I probably would have said that was my favorite pour of the 4. And I wouldn't have expected that, knowing now that it's the Tyrconnell. So, all right, so last but not least, what's number 4?
Compass Box Nectarosity.
Okay, so Compass Box. So this is a blended Scotch. It is meant to be kind of fruit forward and on the sweeter side. It is interesting because when I just got this bottle, when I tasted it the other day, I definitely thought it was a little more fruit forward and a little more complex. I will say that it's actually a little less complex tasting than when we first opened it, now that it's opened up some and got past the neck. I will tell you, however, that I like it better now, even though it's less complex. It had some very fruit-forward notes, similar to the Compass Box Orchard House, that I'm actually not wild about. And some of those fruit notes have died down, and a little bit more of that nectar side, that sweet side, have come out. That is a lovely little pour, even though for the price, I do wish it was maybe a little more complex. This is still a new bottle. We've only had it for a week or two. Scotch can often change for the first couple months that you have it open. So it wouldn't surprise me if this one continues to change a little bit. Obviously, my wife liked it as well, because for a new bottle, we're already making some progress on that. So we'll have to keep that in mind. But yeah, overall, I didn't look like a total idiot, which is always good. There's nothing worse than thinking something is a Scotch and it's a bourbon. I mean, that's pretty heartbreaking. And believe it or not, it has happened more than once. Overall, though, I was in the right range with proof on all of these. And I wasn't horribly wrong with the categories. I mean, the biggest miss is thinking this was a young whiskey and it was 18 years old. But again, with single barrels, the variety and the difference, you know, I'll take that lump. I'll take that loss every day. I can't stress enough that if you have folks to help you out with these tastings, setting up blind tastings with bottles you have and trying it out is extremely fun. It can be really eye-opening and educational, and just a completely different experience than normal whiskey tasting. So I am going to go take a sit and think about what we've done here and whether I really want to subject myself to more of these in the future. And I'm going to let my wife and daughter continue to laugh in the background and be very happy at how foolish they made me look. Frankly, this is the happiest they've been in a while. So that's going to bring up some questions as well. As always, please drink respectfully, please drink responsibly, and most importantly of all, I hope you have fun with it. Thank you for watching Wise Whiskey. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.